This podcast is brought to you by Data Media, email deliverability and email marketing consulting services.
If you have an iPhone or iPad or plugged into your power overnight, it will load every email that comes to your mailbox and fetch the images, including the tracking image. And as a result, everyone who has an Apple device opens. That's currently, around 60% in Europe in our stats. It's 60% of all the opens are coming from Apple MPP. So everybody seems to be active. I mean, they loved it for sure. It was a good day for a marketer who focuses on open rates. A bad day for those who measure the conversions and the conversion rates.
Hello and welcome to episode number 12 of emailgeeks.show, the podcast where almost once a month, email geeks and lovers from around the world share their knowledge in email marketing, email deliverability, and email marketing strategies. My name is Sela Yofe and I'm an email deliverability consultant. I work with global email senders, startups, email and digital agencies, and with some email service providers on improving their email deliverability, email authentication, and email strategy, and I'm the host of this podcast. Today, for the second time on the podcast, my guest is Jakub Olexa, the founder and the CEO of Mailkit and Omnivery. I'm sure it won't be his last appearance on the show. Today we are diving into non-human interactions in email marketing, a phenomenon reshaping how marketeers understand opens and clicks. How are you today, Jakub?
Hi, Sela. I'm good. How are you?
Thank you for joining me for such an interesting topic.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite topics in the past couple of years.
Many email marketeers are unaware of the topic of non-human interactions, NHI. How would you explain non-human interactions in email marketing to email marketeers who haven't heard about it?
This term was coined when we started working on a white paper at MOG, which is a working group for messaging, where we deal with security and other aspects of email and abuse, etc. And, back then when we started, some of us started to notice something that you would call bot clicks or bot opens, but we didn't necessarily want to call it bots because these are not bots per se. These are not abusive interactions or something bad. And the term bot is usually associated with something negative. These are non-human interactions that are performed by automated systems for a good purpose, I would say, in most cases. Of course, there are non-human interactions that are bots, they're negative, but in most cases, these, what is often referred to as bot clicks and bot opens, are actually non-human interactions performed by security scans or privacy protection systems, etc. So to phrase it down into a simple sentence, those are interactions that appear to come from the recipient, from a human, but they are not. It wasn't that intended recipient who did that click or that open, but some sort of a system.
Mog was talking about non-human interactions way before Apple MPP was introduced.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and it took about a year, maybe even more, to get it published. We started way back because this is not a new phenomenon, right? The non-human interactions have been around for years. It's just that their impact was getting more noticeable over time. And I started looking into non-human interactions about 8 or 9 years ago, when we noticed our customer, a tiny customer, a B2B customer, who sent like 400 emails, and all of them were opened, and all of them were clicked, and multiple times, right? And that is something when you're looking at massive lists with hundreds of thousands of recipients, that is not something that you would notice if you have 400 out of those 100,000 opening and clicking.
Yeah.
You're not going to notice it. But if you have a list that has 100% open rate and 100% click rate, you start digging into that. Why is it? And then you notice, oh, it's not just that there was a click for every recipient. There was a click on every link for every recipient. That doesn't look human to me, right?
Right.
And that's the thing about non-human interactions. They're fairly easy to spot in B2B environment. And especially if you're looking back at your data, you would be like, oh, this is obviously not a human. It's kind of more tricky if you want to do it in real time and detect those non-human interactions and flag them. But we started this research, and we found out, okay, so these are not bad actors. These are security scans. These are corporate firewalls. These are antiviruses on end devices. These are anti-spam systems, corporations scanning every single email that passes through the system. So that was got my attention. And then later on, I worked on the white paper at MOG with my colleagues from a couple of other large ESPs to get this published, to bring some attention to this, because it's not just a technical problem, it's also a business problem.
I think that email marketeers became aware of non-human interactions when Apple MPP was introduced. Is MPP considered a non-human interaction?
It is.
It is.
MPP is definitely a non-human interaction. The thing is, as I said, if you're in B2B and you have a small list and everybody opens, everybody clicks, or you have a 90%, it's unusual. It's something that you notice. If you have a massive list and there's a 5% impact on opens and clicks, it's not something you would outright notice. It was when Apple rolled out their MPP, when suddenly those non-human opens or bot opens made up 50 or 60% of all the opens. That's when people started noticing. And on top of that, I think there was a big impact of COVID, which started roughly 4 months later. And many marketeers were not aware of the impact of Apple MPP and attributed the massive increase in opens to COVID.
People being home.
People are sitting home. They're bored. They're reading my emails. They love my emails. Our email campaigns went through the roof. Thank you, COVID. But the fact was, it didn't go through the roof, and many marketers started to notice later on during the COVID period that yes, the open rates went up, but the conversions, the revenues did not copy that at all. Yes, there was increase in sales during COVID, but it wasn't 100% increase like it was with opens. So
Interesting.
a lot of this was kind of hidden through other impacts on our lives.
Apple MPP was introduced in September 21. Can you explain what Apple basically doing with that mail privacy protection?
Yeah. So the idea of Apple MPP is that Apple will load the emails in the background when the device is not being used, preload everything, and by doing that, kind of hide the IP address of the recipient and protect the privacy better. I would argue it just doesn't work as intended, because it also gives a very strong signal that the address actually exists and that that the person behind that mailbox actually reads that mailbox and has an Apple device that loads those messages. So it's something that bad actors can really abuse by testing to see, is this person active or not? But that's beside the point. The point is, it loads the emails. It loads everything without the user actually doing anything. So if you have an iPhone or iPad or plugged into your power overnight, it will load every email that comes to your mailbox and fetch the images, including the tracking image. And as a result, everyone who has an Apple device opens, right? So that's currently, around 60% in Europe. In our stats, it's 60% of all the opens are coming from Apple MPP. So everybody seems to be active, right? And it also meant that, those who were seeing 25% open rates, COVID started and Apple MPP kicked in, and suddenly it was 50% open rate.
Right.
Which, I mean, they loved it for sure. It was a good day for a marketer who focuses on open rates. A bad day for those who measured the conversions, the conversion rates.
Roughly, can you give us a sense of the impact? And I know it varies based on country, and in my country or in the States, it will be different.
Yeah. Well, on average in Europe, it's 50%. Half of all the opens are coming from Apple MPP. In the US, that number will be higher because Apple devices are just more popular there, but could be 75%. So it's a lot.
Amazing. That brings me to the next question. Many ESPs have not updated their platform statistics or informed their clients about this change. Everything on their platform dashboard remains essentially the same.
Well, everything is the same, but also everybody is very happy about high open rates, right? So for many ESPs, it became kind of a internal fight between the technical teams and the business teams, because it is kind of hard to make the business case for why should we suppress the non-human interactions, right? Because it may scare off the customers when they see a sudden drop. At Mailkit, we've been doing detection of non-human interactions before Apple MPP kicked in. So when it kicked in, it had no impact, right? The customers didn't see that spike in open rates. So we didn't have to worry about them being unhappy about the drop. Now, other ESPs who haven't done that, are in a tough position. And I mean, it's not that tough because there are ways how to present this to the customer. And we are also showing these are the interactions that are human. And this would be the total number if non-human interactions would be included. So you kind of see, okay, my open rate is 25%, but including non-human interactions, it would be 40%, right? So there are ways, but it's really about the business case for many ESPs. And when it comes to opens and when it comes to Apple MPP, it's well documented by Apple how to identify Apple MPP opens. So it's not that difficult to implement. When it comes to clicks, that becomes really hard because you don't have Apple MPP behind those. And it's not easy to identify.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe it's a question of a lack of standards. Let's take two different ESPs. One is placing the tracking image pixel above the fold, and the other at the bottom of the email. Does it also impact the open rates statistics?
Okay, so this is tricky. The tracking pixel was never accurate. The open rate measurement was never accurate, and it was always a rough number.
Right.
It's indicative. Second, if you have the tracking pixel at the top of your HTML of your mail, if images are loaded on Gmail, that tracking pixel will load, right?
Right.
On the other hand, if your email is too long, so Gmail decides to crop it, you won't know about it because the tracking pixel loaded. If you have the tracking pixel at the bottom, you have the same likelihood of getting the information about the email being opened. But in addition, you will also get the indication if that email was cropped by Gmail, because suddenly your open rates at Gmail will be super, super low, right? So I don't see an advantage in putting the pixel up top. I see the advantage of putting it at the bottom, not to mention the reduced risks of altering the HTML and having something screw up the content.
I wonder why there is no industry standard for placing the tracking pixel in an ESP.
Because this is not something that can be easily standardized, right?
Okay.
What would be the general benefit of standardizing this? Like, you don't have a standard that would generally cover how web remarketing ads work, right?
Okay.
You can tie them, every campaign can be tied to different attributes, different behavior, etc. So what would be the benefit of having this standard, even within MOG, when we already know that it will be inaccurate anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it's like standardizing something that is broken. And it is broken. It has always been broken. It was not intended this way, right? If the creators of email wanted to have a technology-based information relayed about the status of the message being opened, they would incorporate that into the email standard itself. But because of how email was built and what was the purpose, originally nobody expected this to be used for marketing, right? So there was no need for tracking the opens. And even today, when the industry is discussing having a standardized engagement reporting from the ISPs to ESPs, that would allow us to see the engagement, because right now there are very few ISPs providing this information. You have MailRU, which has certain dashboards that allow you to see how the message was placed and what were the opens and skim opens and deletes, etc. You have Cesnum CZ, which has similar data available over API, but is it comparable? We don't know. You have Yahoo, who has commercial product, and then you have Google Postmaster tools, which are presenting certain information, right? Completely different information. It's not necessarily, oh, this many people have opened, this many people have clicked, etc. And even if there is a standard like that, which is currently being worked on, a standardized engagement feedback loop, it's going to be an aggregate. It's going to be a total number. So if you send out 100,000 emails and you see, well, 20,000 people opened it, how does that help you? Right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be helpful for your automations because you cannot just, randomly guess 20% of your list, right?
Right.
These were the ones who clicked, or these were the ones who opened. You will get, and that's the intent of the new standard, to give you more reliable engagement metrics, so you know if your recipients are really engaged, or you're just believing a random number from one square pixel at the bottom of an email.
And this standard will rely on the mailbox providers.
Yes, that is something that the mailbox providers are working on, to provide unified data. So what you get from Google, what you get from Yahoo, or what you get from 1&1 or Apple iCloud, that it's comparable. So you can tell, okay, I had an engagement of X here, and X here. It's comparable numbers. But
interesting.
We are far from having that. The tracking image, whether it's top, bottom, multiple, is the best we can do to make sure that it has as wide compatibility as possible. Yes, with AMP, you could do other things, but again, the support for AMP is fairly limited. You could incorporate schemas or many other technologies that would give you some sort of information, but would it be accurate enough? Would it work for 90% of your recipients? Like 20 years ago when we started, we were talking about, hey, by the way, the accuracy of the open rates is low because people have to click to load images, right? Remember that 20 years ago, it was people had to click to load images, and 20% of people were using email clients that didn't support HTML at all. So it was a completely different world. And open rates were extremely inaccurate back then, right? Marketers got used to the fact that it became more accurate thanks to Google image caching, right? So that made it more accurate because images were loaded by default for everyone. They didn't have to confirm, yes, I want to load images, right?
Like
and
Outlook
pretty
desktop.
much everybody adopted that. So it got more accurate, way more than it used to be. It doesn't mean it became accurate enough.
Right. I think that you mentioned Gmail. Gmail is also doing some kind of a prefetching of images, proxying it.
Yeah. So that's another thing. Google, Yahoo, Yandex, you name it. Pretty much everyone these days does image caching, right? So instead of downloading the image every single time, they will just cache the images and store it in their system. So when you open an email that I opened an hour ago, they don't have to go and download that image again and again and again for every single person, because that's a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah.
Now, that caching is very efficient, but at the same time, if they cache an image that is unique to a single recipient, it does not affect the open rates really. It would affect the metrics of how many times that single email was opened, but because the tracking image has a unique URL for every recipient, it's not affected by the caching in terms of measuring open rates, or in 99% of cases or 95% of cases, because there are cases when this loading is not done when the user opens an email, but when Google wants to see that email and do some security scans.
What's the impact of non-human interactions on e-commerce brands?
It's massive, not only because the open rates are
Bloated.
bloated, 2 times, but also because the non-human interactions, there are clicks, right? And today, when e-commerce is all about automations and, do this, if that, it not only affects the numbers that you see in your reports, but it affects your cost, because suddenly you're executing automations based on a bot, if we call it that, based on an automatic system somewhere doing a scan of your email. Now, not only that, it can and it will have a impact on your reputation, because ultimately you're sending emails
Wrong signals.
based on signals that are not true. And if you ask whether these scans also scan double opt-in emails, of course they do. And if your double opt-in only relies on that single click, then it will subscribe your email, right? So now you can have malicious
Amazing.
subscribes that are confirmed with double opt-in. You will be sending to factually inactive users, and you will send them a whole scenario of emails based on their clicks. So instead of sending them one click and realizing that's a dead user, not opening, not clicking, suddenly you have all these interactions. So you will send a follow-up email, and then the other follow-up, and then the follow-up. So you'll send a lot of emails. And lastly, spam traps are scanning just as much as any other email. So you cannot simply say, well, this user is an active user. It's because he's opening, he's clicking. It might as well be a spam trap. So if you're unable to detect non-human interactions, then the overall quality of your list is going down the longer you keep following these false events.
Amazing. I'm saying to my clients, don't rely on opens. You might rely on clicks. And now you're saying
accurate,
it's more accurate.
Let's say today, on average, it's around, somewhere between 7 and 10% of clicks are non-human in B2C.
B2C?
Yeah.
How is that?
Here's the thing. The business addresses like Google Workspace or Outlook 365 do these scans, right?
Right.
No question about that. They will do the scans, and Microsoft is more known for this simply because they're kind of aggressive when they're doing the scans, and more easier to spot.
Right.
But in the business address world, you also have multiple of these scans at a time, because many of the customers don't rely on Outlook 365 security, but have a proof point in front of it. So
Right.
then you could easily have 2 scans on every link. That doesn't mean that regular Outlook and regular Gmail don't do these scans. They do. They do them just as much. It's just
Not every email.
they use more clustering. Outlook
Right.
365, is a business address. If you have a company that has 100 email addresses, that's a very small sample to do a cluster, right? It's more efficient rather than clustering those messages. It's probably more efficient in most cases for them to just scan every message, right? It's the same for Proofpoint, right? Proofpoint doesn't have time to waste on clustering and figuring out whether the message sent a minute ago is similar to the one that is sent right now.
By clustering, you mean that they're sampling?
So clustering is when you have a message that has certain attributes.
All
They
right.
can cluster all the messages that are similar.
From the same sender.
So it comes from a similar sender. It doesn't
similar
necessarily
sender.
have to be the same sender, because a lot spammers often
Spammers.
use thousands of sending addresses and domains, etc. But in general, the content is the same.
Right.
So they can cluster them together and see, oh, this is all the same spam, or oh, this is all the same promotional good stuff, right?
Right.
That clustering is using hundreds, maybe even thousands of attributes of a message to cluster them together and then see, okay, this is my group, and this new message that comes in belongs to that group.
Right.
Let's not scan all those million messages. Let's pick samples randomly and use those. And that's what they're doing. So if you're sending a newsletter to Gmail and you're hitting million addresses, Google doesn't have to scan all the million addresses or million copies of that message. They can just look, okay, so this is a cluster. Let's look at samples. Let's look at 1,000, maybe 10,000 random samples, see where they're pointing. What is it? What's behind that? What's the risk factor here? And then based on that, they can decide, okay, this will go to spam. This will go to promotions. This will go to inbox. This will go to spam for Sella, inbox for Jakub. They're very smart at this.
Right. I think that the sender guidelines, I'm not just talking about the new sender guidelines, was to send emails to people who wants to get those emails. Non-human interactions make it impossible, almost impossible, to the common sender to obey those guidelines. What the common sender using the common email platform can do.
Oh, it's tricky for sure. But the guidelines are very general. So they're also telling you, okay, make sure your frequency is not too high, right? Make sure you're sending content that your recipients want, that is relevant. So that will be different if you're selling food delivery, right? And if you're selling cars. I'm certainly not buying cars every day, right?
And not every
but
week.
I need food every day.
Yeah.
Right. So the frequency has to be different. Now, does it mean that the car maker should send me, or my car dealer should send me an email only once every 2 years? Probably not, because I would forget about him. So that dealer or that brand needs to think about what's the balance between, annoying my customers and getting a value to them, right? Which also dictates the content. Now, if I'm sending every 2 weeks, I have a good content, and I'm seeing a bunch of opens, but no clicks, or the clicks are going down, I can take those clicks as an indicator, right?
What about newsletters?
But
Harder.
it's still tricky.
Yeah.
It's still going to be tricky, because if that recipient has Apple MPP and my ESP is not suppressing MPPs,
Yes.
then I will keep sending to that recipient and be annoying as hell, right? So marketers need to consider, does my platform have tools for suppression of at least Apple MPP?
Yeah.
If not, how can I suppress it myself? Right? And
Okay.
then there are ways how marketers can, in many platforms, import a list of certain suppression rules, right? So if the click originated at Apple MPP gateway IP,
Okay.
don't count that open. It's an Apple MPP open. There are many ways how marketers can do rudimentary suppressions. In my opinion, it's not the marketer's job. They're paying the platform for the tools, so
Yes.
they don't have to do it themselves. So I would argue, if your platform doesn't give you that option, you should probably switch your platform. Find another one.
Do you have a knowledge about the percentage, at least, of ESPs that actually did some filtering around MPP? I think it's a fraction.
It is a fraction. I know that this year a lot of ESPs started to worry about this. It became something that they started to work on, started to build some tools, some detections, etc. Whether they rolled it out to their customers or not is a different question. How did they roll it out? I know that, some are, still presenting the overall number.
The bloated.
But in fact, if they know that it's a non-human open, it's coming from Apple MPP, they will not include it in the automation triggers, etc. So it's really a question of asking your ESP, how do you deal with this? What is your situation when it comes to non-human interactions? How do you handle those?
For those who are not switching an ESP right now, but still wants to navigate those bloated opens and bloated metrics, what should they do?
Really, really good marketers with very high engagement will get to 30 plus real opens. But that guidance is not the best, because it's not about the overall number.
Right.
It's the deliverability is not overall. You cannot say you have good deliverability or bad deliverability in general, because that's generalizing. The biggest value, in my opinion, of open rates is when you're looking at open rates over time per destination. So if
Gmail, for
if you
example.
have 30% open rate at Gmail, you cannot expect that you will have 30% at Yahoo. It will be less, because their caching and behavior of their user base is different. The same goes for, GMX, because those systems place into different folders. Users behave differently at these platforms, etc. So you cannot say, well, my deliverability is bad at Cessnum because my open rate is 15% and Gmail is 30%. Unless you understand that Cessnum has a different logic of placement of messages. So
Right.
that 15%, in general, half of what you see at Gmail, is actually a good number. That is what you should be aiming for. And this goes for every single mailbox provider. It's like Google, Yahoo, and Outlook, each will show you a slightly different number
Right.
because of many reasons. But if you see a sudden change in those numbers over time, that's the indication of certain deliverability issues.
Right.
That's what you should be focused on. For anything else, open rate, is a random number. You shouldn't really care, right? And in fact, you shouldn't really care about click rates as well, right? Because those are more accurate, way more accurate. But again, unless your business model brings you money from clicks, you need to focus on conversions, on actual sales. So yes, marketers are used to looking at open rates and looking at click rates, but those rates don't mean that much. It's the actual events that matter. And if it was a human. So if a human clicks and you can say, it was Sela who clicked the link in an email, you can use that information. You can trigger some automation, offer a discount, do whatever.
Right.
But if you're just looking at the overall number, it's just a number.
Sometimes we open emails not based on the actual emails. We see the email, I'm clicking on my browser, and I'm on their website. So this is also a good signal.
Yeah, well, I would argue it's not.
Okay.
Simply because, so attribution in general is a nightmare. But if you cannot reliably link that action to an email, then you cannot just assume that it was because of that email. And I agree that, often you get an email, you don't open it, you delete it right away, but that brand is so high on your mind that you will just, go to your bookmarks or enter it into your browser. But you cannot say that it was because of that email, because if you saw a Facebook ad at that
It's a weak signal.
In my opinion, it's a pointless signal because it could be anything. Okay. It could be whether it was an email or it was that you saw a Facebook ad or, a YouTube video that mentioned that brand, or you saw a billboard on the street, or you're watching TV and you're seeing their commercial.
Right.
Like, it's a coin toss. It could have been any of that. So assuming that my email recipient is active just because he's active on my website, but he never clicks, never opens my emails, and I will still keep sending him emails because I think, well, he's active on my website.
Right.
There's just waste of money on those emails. And I agree, emails are cheap. But if you have millions and millions of emails, it starts to add up.
Yeah.
And you're just hurting your reputation in the long run.
How do non-human interactions impact list hygiene and sunset policies based on engagement?
You cannot do list hygiene based on fake opens and fake clicks. You cannot. That's the whole thing. What is engagement?
Right.
Engagement is not some click or some open. It's the actual human click or human open. So if you're cleaning your list based on people who did not click and did not open, let's remove those.
Many do that.
Many do that. It's better than nothing, but it doesn't work. Right? It's you're already including all the fake engagement in that
Yes.
process. So the
Do you think that marketeers needs to ignore engagement altogether because
No.
if they're not using platforms that can make sense out of the engagement? And it's a sophisticated question because most marketeers don't know what's behind their platform,
they should ask.
engine.
But there is engagement that you can reliably measure, right? But it's difficult to do that. And marketers are not used to doing that. And that is connect your e-commerce data, your actual sales, your actual visits, and where they came from, reliably. That you can say, okay, this came from an email. And it had 2 minutes worth of interaction with my website, because those bots that will click your email when they're scanning the link, they will visit your website. And in many cases, they will show up as a visitor in your
analytics,
Google Analytics, etc., because they will load the scripts and analyze the page, but they will not follow links on that page unless they identify something dangerous. So marketers need to put more focus on connecting the dots, connecting their commercial data. These are my sales. These are the people that I'm selling to that actually made a purchase in past 6 months. And I can attribute that in any way to a direct or indirect way from an email. Then that's relevant. That's a relevant engagement. That's the best engagement, right? And once you have these, then take the rest and try to find a way to suppress those who are non-human by the basic means, right? If you end up with half of your list, that's it.
Mailkit is the best-in-class email and automation platform, and Omnivery is a premium transactional SMTP service in the cloud. Mailkit and Omnivery lead the market in terms of innovations and deliverability. You highlighted the internal dilemma that many ESPs face regarding Apple MPP and NHI. Many chose to do nothing. But you have a solution that allows ESPs and large senders to obtain much more accurate open and click metrics using your solution. Can you share more?
So the problem of non-human interactions is not just a technical problem or a business problem, but when you go deeper, you find out it's a complex technical problem. Apple MPP is the simple problem. It's well published, well documented by Apple. That's a problem that affects your opens and your open metrics. And if you have campaigns that are tied to opens, then obviously it will affect your automations. But the bigger problem, and the one that affects B2B just as well as B2C and affects the business even more, is the non-human clicks, which is, where you actually usually make your money. I haven't heard of anyone who made money by, looking at an email, but clicking on an email, that usually brings the money. And these non-human clicks occur usually when security scanners scan the emails. Now, in B2B, as I mentioned, that could be 100% easily. It's usually a very high number.
Right.
But in B2C, because of much more advanced techniques and, the mailbox providers being able to cluster similar messages together. So they can be much more efficient, and instead of checking every single message from a campaign and every single link in every single message, they would do a cluster and, randomly pick, look at this message, we'll look at that message, scan the links in those messages to see where they're pointing to, whether it's a phishing attack or something that would be nefarious. So that's the point of those non-human clicks. The problem is that these are very difficult to detect. They are usually much easier to detect in the B2B space because of obvious patterns. In B2C, which is where marketers are mostly focused on, it's really difficult. Again, it's fairly easy to be retroactive, go back, look at your reports, and you see, as a human, you see, oh, this is weird. You look at one single recipient and you see, oh, he opened that message and then he clicked five links, and each click came from a different country. Obviously, not a human, right?
Yeah.
But doing this at scale at the time when this occurs is much more difficult than it seems to. And it's usually not as easy as, these highly visible cases where you see opens from different countries.
Right.
It's usually much more obfuscated because these are security scans. They want to be able to perform these security scans, so they don't want to be seen. And most importantly, they want to make sure that attackers won't be able to change the destination URL in real time based on whether it's a scan by a anti-spam system or it's a click by a human. It's really hard to detect, but because we've been doing this for 8 years, we've got pretty decent at this. And this year we decided to release the engine that we use for this detection as an API product. So third parties like ESPs that need to perform these scans and identify the information for their reporting can pass the data to our API and get the data back with the information, whether it was human or not. That's the whole point. Being able to provide more accurate information in the reporting. And we have a couple of ESPs already on board and taking advantage of this bot detection API.
Let's say we agree on the business terms. You're well known of your vetting process. Is it for everyone or?
It's not for everyone. There are definitely parties that we would not allow access to this API because we believe that they could abuse the information. We also have technical limitations embedded in the API, so it cannot be abused for real-time redirection, etc. But good ESPs are definitely welcome. Even it could be used by brands, large brands. It doesn't have to be an ESP, but we are very careful about who gets to use this API because it not only has a lot of our data, but it also leverages data from our partners who require certain assurances from our side.
If an ESP cannot distinguish between non-human interactions and human interactions, but can identify user behavior on the website, can that signal be used as an engagement signal?
If you record an activity of a user that came from YouTube or AdWords or Facebook or whatever, and made a purchase on your website, but you have no record of him clicking a link or opening an email, then you cannot simply say, oh, it's an active customer. It is an active user for sure, but he has no interest in email.
Right.
You're not losing that customer because you stop sending an email to him. He will come through another channel. If he wants to get your emails, he can always resubscribe, right? But don't be afraid to remove inactives. And it really comes down to being aggressive on your list. And you have the tools today that allow you to automate all of this, including if there is a click, call our API, ask if it was human, and have that in your automation.
Yes.
You can have that. And then
that's amazing.
You can make a better decision. But if you as a marketer just sit there watching your automation because you've done it, you build your automations and don't adapt to the changes of the environment, you probably don't deserve the salary, right? Because anyone can sit on a chair and just watch how the automation does the job.
Yeah.
But the environment, the email environment, the environment of web, online ads, social networks, everything is changing. You cannot expect it to work the same all the time.
I'm curious why engagement signals are so important, because email users can always mark emails as spam or unsubscribe with a hit of a button.
Yeah, but you're assuming that everybody is a nice marketer.
I hear you.
So spammers don't honor unsubscribes. They don't care.
Okay.
A lot of brands take their time. And I mean, they take a lot of time to unsubscribe. And there were brands where I had to actually contact the ESP, my friends at that company, and tell them, put me on a suppression list because they're ignoring my unsubscribes.
Amazing.
Right? And those were no small brands. But I'm not saying that this is what goes on everywhere, but there are big brands who are trying to, find the way around things. There are managers of marketers who just don't want to see those unsubscribes, and they're actively pushing the marketers who would like to follow best practices to send again and again and take advantage of whatever open window there is after the unsubscribe. It's one of the reasons why Google said unsubscribe needs to be honored within a certain time frame. And then there are the bad actors who don't care. They will not even include a unsubscribe list. But even then, even if it was a good sender who honors the unsubscribes and everything is fine, what if that sender sends a million messages every single day to their million recipients? Why should all those people unsubscribe, do the action rather than just ignore it?
Okay.
And let Google calculate the engagement as insufficient and say, well, nobody wants these emails. Let's put them into spam. Right. And that's what Google is doing. Google is protecting you as a Google user from, the same goes for Yahoo. Yahoo doesn't care about the sender, about the brand. They're not there to cater to the brand. They're there to cater to their customers, which are the owners of the mailboxes. And they want their best for them. So marketers need to look at it from that perspective. Google is not doing it simply because they would want to save some change on hardware, on spam filtering, because from their perspective, it would be a change, right? It would be peanuts. Even if it's millions of dollars, it's still peanuts. Right? Their concern is seller being happy about what he gets into his inbox. And that he doesn't have to click report spam or unsubscribe on every single message that he gets every day. Imagine that, you would be getting hundreds of emails per day that you would be unsubscribing. Yes, that would be the last time you get that email, but you would have to manually unsubscribe 100 messages per day.
That's what was before, 20 years ago or something. Yes.
And we were not happy about that. Nobody was happy about that.
Yeah.
So engagement is a critical signal for the reputational systems to calculate and tell whether that mail should go to inbox or spam.
I think we covered it.
I guess so.
Something that I forgot, or do you want to add something?
Oh, I always have something to add, but we would be here for another hour and a half, and
I loved it. You said I will be bored, but I told you no. I always love to learn from you, and you're always full of surprises.
Yeah, well, always happy to chat.
I will count it and hope it will be sooner than later.
Yeah, sure. Well,
amazing.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you very much, Jakub.
This podcast is brought to you by Data Media, email deliverability and email marketing consulting services.